Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a really crucial set of sources. We've got articles, some behavioral research, and they're all about solving one massive challenge for any language learner:
Right?
how to stop treating English like a subject you have to study and, start actually living it. We're diving deep into some practical, high-impact strategies that can make building that speaking habit almost automatic.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
Our mission here is really a knowledge shortcut to behavioral success.
hmm
The material we looked at is just ruthlessly focused on efficiency, not on volume.
Okay.
The core objective is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Shift your mindset from, I have to find time to study, to, this is just how I live my life now.
Mm.
We're moving past motivation and focusing completely on structure.
And these are scientifically grounded methods, right? The key being they're not overwhelming.
Critically non-overwhelming. That's the whole point.
And the sources break this whole strategy down into four really actionable pillars. And when
Yeah.
you combine them, they seem to create a pretty resilient system.
Yeah.
We're talking about habit stacking, the psychologically brilliant 5-minute routine, creating specific English zones in your environment, and then the ultimate strategy for just maintaining consistency.
This is really the playbook for anyone who feels like they have no time. These strategies need minimal time commitment, but they maximize integration into the flow of your day.
Which makes the new habit resilient.
Exactly. Resilient against the inevitable chaos of a busy life.
Okay, so let's unpack this core idea first. Moving from dedicated study time to an integrated lifestyle. Because I think most people fail right there. They approach English like it's this huge project.
Like a homework assignment.
Yeah, an assignment that demands this, like anxiety-inducing 45 or 60 minutes.
And that's exactly why they burn out. I mean, the human brain is literally designed to conserve energy. So when you schedule a large, new, effort-intensive task, it immediately triggers resistance.
That's that decision fatigue we hear about.
That's it at work. The behavioral research is really clear on this. If you wait for the perfect free hour, it's never going to happen. The practice has to become integrated, almost passive, not active and forced.
Which brings us right to the first major technique the sources talk about for, bypassing that resistance. Habit stacking. This is where we stop relying on willpower altogether.
Habit stacking is maybe the most powerful tool in the whole behavioral toolkit. It works because it takes a new, desirable behavior,
Yeah.
your English practice,
Mhm.
and it chains it directly to an already established habit.
So something you don't even think about anymore.
A deeply ingrained daily routine. Think of it like a massive train already running down the track. You're just hooking your small new English habit onto the last car.
Okay, so give me a concrete example. My existing habit is making coffee. How exactly do I stack the English practice onto that? What do the sources say specifically?
So you're creating a kind of if-then rule that just minimizes the cognitive load. So the existing trigger is, I turn the kettle on. The new chained behavior is, I will mentally narrate the 3 steps of making my coffee in English. The key here is the immediacy. You don't think about it. The existing habit is the direct, non-negotiable cue.
So you're tapping into the automatic part of the brain.
Yes, the basal ganglia. That's the part responsible for automatic routines. You're completely bypassing the part that handles conscious decision-making.
That's fascinating. So it's not about finding motivation. It's about engineering your environment so that the English practice is just the natural path of least resistance thing to do next.
Exactly. And the behavioral scientists confirm this. By doing this, you drastically reduce how much you have to rely on motivation and willpower.
So, another one. What if my trigger is, say, walking in the door after work?
Perfect. You immediately stack a 2-minute review. So, after I put my keys in the dish, I will describe 3 things that happened in my day out loud in English. The keys in the dish cue the language practice,
Not a reminder on your phone.
not a reminder on your phone.
But let me play devil's advocate here. If I stack like 3 new habits, aren't I just adding more effort back into my already busy routine? How do we keep this new habit small enough so it doesn't break the chain?
That's a critical question.
Mm.
And it's why the sources really emphasize that the new behavior has to be what they call the minimum effective dose.
The minimum effective dose.
It has to be so small that it feels, well, honestly absurd to skip it. And that leads us perfectly into the second pillar, the psychologically brilliant 5-minute routine.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting for, the busy professional. Because 5 minutes, it almost feels insulting to a serious learner, right?
It does.
But the sources argue that this brevity, this shortness, is the core ingredient for long-term consistency.
It is the ultimate antidote to what psychologists call the all-or-nothing bias.
Okay, explain that.
Well, when a learner tries to do a 30-minute block and fails one day, they feel guilty, and then they often just quit entirely. The 5-minute routine removes that psychological hurdle,
It's too small to fail.
and it's too brief to be a valid excuse for skipping it. The goal, especially in the early stages, is not learning the maximum amount. It's achieving continuity, maintaining the chain.
So, what does a high-impact, low-friction 5-minute English activity actually look like? We need concrete examples here, things that eliminate that decision fatigue. I could spend 5 minutes just thinking about what I'm supposed to do.
And that's the failure point you have to avoid. The 5-minute activity has to be defined and repetitive. The sources suggest focusing on expressive output, not just passive input, during these little bursts.
Okay, give us three. Three distinct daily 5-minute actions someone could start, like today.
Okay, first, a simple mental warm-up. For 5 minutes during your morning commute, you mentally rehearse the exact script for the next interaction you expect to have.
Like ordering lunch or a presentation?
The presentation, ordering lunch, a phone call, yeah.
Right.
You focus on perfect delivery, not on learning new vocabulary.
A second one.
Micro-shadowing.
Micro-shadowing.
Find a 90-second clip from a native speaker, a news anchor, a character from a show, and you spend 5 minutes just listening and repeating that little segment. You're focusing intensely on the intonation, the rhythm.
So you're not trying to understand the plot, you're just mimicking the sound.
Exactly, mimicking the sound profile.
Okay, and a third one. Maybe something focused on writing.
Absolutely. The third is the 2-sentence summary log. After you read any short article or email in your own language, you take 5 minutes and write a 2-sentence summary of the main idea, but you address it to a hypothetical English-speaking colleague.
I like that. It forces you to be concise and apply it immediately.
Right. And the key is that they're all structured, they're brief, and they're measurable. You know if you've done it or not.
That's a great selection. It really moves the focus from learning grammar to actually using language.
Oh.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about integrating habits into a time schedule. Now let's talk about integrating them into our physical space, our mental environment, which the sources call creating English zones.
This is where we start to tap into things like state-dependent learning and context-dependent memory. English zones are specific physical contexts or environments that you designate solely for English use.
So you're reinforcing that lifestyle mindset.
And training your brain that when you enter X context, a specific chair, the gym, the laundry room, the default language setting just changes.
So the environment itself becomes the most powerful trigger of all. It's like a micro immersion strategy.
It is.
What does this look like outside of, a classroom or a study room?
It's about the strategic placement of the language practice, where you're already physically or mentally busy with a nonverbal task. For example, the sources really advocate turning specific chores into dedicated English listening zones. So when you're folding laundry or washing dishes, tasks that take very little cognitive effort, only English audio is permitted.
A podcast, a lecture, music.
Whatever. The repetitive physical task frees up the cognitive bandwidth for deep listening.
That is highly effective. You're pairing an activity that consumes your hands with an activity that consumes your ears without demanding, focused reading or speaking.
Precisely. Or think about an English-speaking zone during exercise.
Yes.
If you're on a stationary bike or walking on a treadmill, that is the moment you dedicate to mental rehearsal in English.
What, like reciting a poem or something?
It could be reciting an English poem or summarizing a book you just read in your native language.
Yeah.
The physical discomfort even acts as a powerful anchor, a cue for that language state.
It really sounds like we're just externalizing our willpower. We're outsourcing the activation energy to the environment itself.
That's it.
So when I pick up the laundry basket, the environment cues the English input, not my conscious decision.
That is the essential insight. You stop relying on tired willpower at the end of a long day. You're conditioning your brain so that the context dependency, the sight of the laundry basket, the sound of the car engine starting, it just lowers the barrier to entry.
It makes the language use automatic within that boundary.
Automatic.
Okay, so we've built a pretty robust system now. We've got the lifestyle mindset. We've chained the habit to existing routines. We've kept the entry point tiny with the 5-minute routine. And we've used physical space to trigger practice.
Right.
But we have to address the biggest pain point: consistency. How do we troubleshoot failure when things inevitably go wrong? You get sick, there's a major work crisis, you're traveling.
This is the critical juncture. Behavioral studies show that most people abandon a habit Not because they lack motivation, but because they break the chain once.
Just once.
And then they fall prey to what's called the what the heck effect. They feel like they've ruined the streak, so they just quit entirely.
And if you're trying to practice for 60 minutes a day, one day of sickness would absolutely break that chain completely.
But a system is designed to be resilient. This is where that 5-minute routine proves its real worth. When life throws obstacles at you, the focus shifts entirely from progress to maintenance.
So you're not trying to learn new vocabulary on that day.
No, you are just trying to maintain the chain, even if it's only for 60 seconds.
So if I'm traveling and I'm exhausted, I can't do my usual 5 minutes of shadowing after breakfast. What is the absolute minimum viable effort that the sources recommend?
The focus is just on the anchor. If your stacked habit is on brushing your teeth, the maintenance habit could be just narrating one single sentence in English while you put the toothbrush away.
Wow, that's small.
It's intentionally that small.
Yeah.
You're maintaining the behavioral cue and you're affirming to your brain, this habit is still active. The goal is what some people call 0 days, never letting a day pass where you acknowledge the trigger without performing the behavior, no matter how small.
It's the difference between relying on a fragile spark of inspiration and relying on an unbreakable structural system.
That's it.
So consistency is maintained by having an entry point so low that it's just impossible to skip, even during high stress.
And if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, the habit stacking and the English zones, they fundamentally support this consistency by removing the need for conscious effort.
You don't have to decide.
You never have to decide to do it. The trigger just pulls you through. You've outsourced the activation energy to your environment and your established routines. The whole system becomes self-sustaining and incredibly difficult to break.
That brings us to the end of this deep dive into building, well, an unbreakable English habit. Let's quickly summarize the 4 actionable science-backed takeaways for you, the learner.
First, adopt that lifestyle focus. Integrate English into your life rather than treating it as a separate study block. And second, use habit stacking. Chain a new, tiny English behavior onto an established daily routine.
Right, and you're using the power of those existing triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Third, keep that core routine to a maximum of 5 minutes. That mitigates busyness and eliminates that all-or-nothing mindset. And fourth, strategically create environmental English zones to get rid of the friction and ensure context-specific language use.
You're using state-dependent memory, all these strategies together. They fundamentally restructure your relationship with language learning. They move it from a difficult goal you have to chase to a streamlined, resilient structure you just live within.
And for a final provocative thought for you to consider, based on all this dense material, if the main goal is turning English into a daily lifestyle, how incredibly small can that first step be? That first stacked behavior, to ensure that even on your absolute busiest, most chaotic day, you can still do it without fail.
Think about that smallest possible step right now. Identify one existing rock-solid daily habit. Maybe it's putting on your shoes, maybe waiting for your computer to boot up, and just determine the simplest 5-minute routine you can stack onto it.
And start in the next 24 hours.
Start in the next 24 hours.
That is the definition of turning abstract knowledge into immediate, sustainable behavioral change. Thank you for sharing these sources with us and letting us take this deep dive. We really hope this gives you the structural tools you need to make English an automatic, unbreakable daily habit.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.